Next, we're going to take a look at the question of ethics surrounding mass media messages. And one piece of the puzzle that we haven't talked about just yet is the control and ownership of media companies. Media interests and ownership have become more and more concentrated over the past few decades as a result of deregulation. Deregulation is the overturning or revising of policies that controlled media outlets and tried to ensure that media outlets served the interests of the public and included diverse viewpoints, programs, and ownership. The argument for deregulation was to make the overall market for network, cable, satellite, and other media outlets much more competitive than they originally were. And this deregulation has resulted in a large amount of media convergence. Media convergence refers to the merging of technologies that were once developed separately and are now being used together. One such convergence is the creation of broadband internet access through existing cable lines, and then companies bundling cable and high-speed internet services together so that it's much cheaper to get one with the other as opposed to one or the other. And many media conglomerates wanted to own both the methods of distribution for their messages and the messages themselves in order to have more control over the devices and technologies and all of that kind of thing. And so as you can see from this graph, our media landscape is controlled by very few companies. In fact, there are like 6 big media companies that control a lot of the market. And some of these companies control both the distribution as well as the content that is being distributed. So on this graph, anything in purple is a distribution company. The blue teal color are the content creators, and then the red are streaming services. And so as you can see, companies like AT&T and Comcast are both distributors as well as content creators because they have converged with other companies. AT&T has partnered with Warner Media and therefore owns Warner Brothers Studios, HBO, all of the Turner channels like CNN, TNT, and TBS, and they also own the distribution like through DirecTV and through AT&T. Whereas Comcast, they have Comcast Cable, which you're probably familiar with, but they also own a lot of content as well, like NBC, DreamWorks, Universal Studios, and E! And Bravo. And so there's been a lot of companies that are buying other companies and teaming up with other companies, and Disney's actually a really good example of this as well. Disney recently purchased 21st Century Fox, which gave them a ton more content than they had previously. But before that, Disney bought Lucasfilm, which was the owner of the Star Wars films. They bought Marvel Studios, which owned most of the superhero movies that are really popular. And so Disney is just buying all of these different pieces of content and then distributing them through movie theaters and whatnot. But there used to be hundreds, if not thousands, of different companies, and this deregulation has caused all of this convergence to happen so that there are now very few individuals, or very few companies rather, that are controlling the messages that we are seeing. And that can cause a lot of ethical questions, such as how the media that they are producing influences other countries, as well as how the media they're producing influences our perceptions about our own culture. So let's take a look at that next.